Okay, well, welcome to Site Leaders Connect Insight Interviews. I'm excited today. We have Matt Miller with us. He's going to introduce himself and tell us why he chose to be an educational leader.
Hi, Catherine. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity. Just a little background. I am the proud superintendent of Lakota Local Schools. Lakota is just north of Cincinnati, Ohio, and I'm finishing up my first year here at Lakota. I'll go backwards. Previously to being at Lakota, I was superintendent at Mentor Public Schools, which is east of Cleveland. I was there 5 years as superintendent. Before that, I was superintendent at Salina City Schools for 7 years, which is in West Central Ohio. I've been blessed to work with some really great educators in my career and along my career path. I think really I wanted to get into education because you want to have an impact, right? And so I think my first foray into education, actually, I was an aide for a student with autism. And that sort of opened up my eyes about some of the issues that he was dealing with and some of the things that I was trying to help with. And then I worked up through the ranks from that to being a classroom teacher. I taught elementary school for 5 years. Then I was an elementary school principal for 5 years, and then central office. So I've been able to have an impact, I think, every step along the way. But I think I moved up not because that's what I started out to be. I really didn't start out to be in education, to be a superintendent. I don't know who does, right? But I think once you get to a certain level, you think, wow, this is pretty good. I'm having a pretty good impact here. And how can I even have make a bigger impact to help kids and to help teachers? And so I think that's what really ultimately led me to become a superintendent.
Thank you, Matt. And I appreciate that your reasons for going into education and for continuing into leadership are based on a story of a student, based on wanting to make a bigger impact. And that's something I know you were going to talk about today, was student and teacher voice. So what insight do you have to share with us that you've gained that may be beneficial to other leaders?
And thanks, Catherine, for saying that. And one of the things that probably helped me out the most, especially when I came here at Lakota almost a year ago, was we had community conversations. I had conversations with every single staff member, at least the opportunity in every single building. And in Lakota, we have just under 17,000 students, 23 buildings. And so we had conversations at every one of those buildings with the staff once I got started in August of 2017. And so essentially the conversation revolved around two things: what's working and what can we do better? And so I really listened a lot, did not interject too much into those staff conversations. But I came away, my team came away with really good insight into how teachers feel, how they feel they're being supported or not being supported, and what are some things that they can do better. And interestingly enough, and I'm not just saying this, that the concerns that our teachers had here, and I think many teachers across the country weren't their concerns, but it was really the concerns that they had for their students. And so when you hear that about, I need this, or it would be better for me if I had that, from a teacher perspective, it was built around what they needed for their students. So we took all that in after those conversations with our staff, and then we had some student conversations as well that I'll get to in just a second. And then I came up with my team and with our school board on plans for change. And so we didn't wait till the end of the school year. Essentially in December, we started making changes now, but really for the following school year. So those listening sessions and the implementation phase was really built around the teacher workday, what it looks like, and then ultimately the student experience. So there were some cutbacks that had happened a few years ago. We're starting to build that out slowly, but we're also really diving into educational technology, building out what that looks like for our staff and for our students and what those experiences are. So it was, okay, I listened, and now we're gonna dive into what are the changes that we can do and what can we accomplish in the short term, and then what's that long-term vision too. So that certainly helped a lot. one of the great things that's happened here at Lakota in probably the last 9 months is we started something very, very small that has just really taken off to embrace teacher voice, and that was our Ed Chats. So we started a hashtag Lakota Ed Chat. I did the very first one in August, and ever since then, we've done one every week, with the exception of winter break and New Year's break. And aside from that, we've had teachers and other administrators leading our Ed Chats. So we do those every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and they've really taken off. So our teachers are sharing what they're doing in the classroom. They're sharing what their students are doing. They're asking questions. We've run the gamut from academics and social emotional learning to visual charting to anxiety in students. And it's really sort of turned the district, or I don't want to say around, that's not the right word, but really turned the district into something more positive in terms of teachers collaborating and communicating with one another. I think as educational entities, sometimes we don't do that as much as we should. I'm a huge believer in tapping into the experts in our school districts, and those experts are in our classrooms. Certainly not the superintendent or the administration per se, but a lot of it is we just have to tap into and let our teachers run and say yes when we can say yes to a lot of things that they want to try and do for their kids. So the Ed Chats have been great to get that student and teacher voice out there. And in fact, as I mentioned, students, we have students now that participate in our Ed Chats every week. And in fact, we've let 2 or 3 groups now lead our Ed Chats. So we let our students lead. We've let our students lead our Ed Chats, and that's gone really well too. So when we had the teacher conversations and the community conversations with our staff, we also then parlayed that into student conversations. And the students will tell you wholeheartedly what's in their hearts, and they're very, very honest. And so when I came to Lakota, when I was lucky enough to get this position, they had interest groups based on building a profile for what they want in a superintendent candidate. And so there were different cross sections of the community that filled out sort of like the ideal candidate. And the student perspective was probably the most honest of any of the groups that I saw after the fact. And then we've morphed those teacher conversations into now student conversations, and sort of the same way with teachers. We're sort of building out what's in our students' best interest and what should we be doing for our kids as well. And they are brutally honest and tell you a lot of times what you think or what you perceive happens in the classroom. They just come out and tell you, right? And
Yeah.
so that's been very good for us in terms of engaging the student voice, even before what the kids at Parkland have been doing after that tragedy took place and everything that we're seeing in the news and the media, and it feels different right now. But we had been sort of building out that student voice. Obviously, they're coming from a different perspective than what our kids are coming from right now. But looking at the academic piece and what do our kids need to be engaged, to truly collaborate with one another, because that's a lot of what business and industry wants, and so do colleges for that matter. So we're listening to our kids too, and sort of building out what we can for them as we move down the field of education and what's in the best interest of all of our students.
I love that emphasis on student voice, not just teacher voice. And the fact that you have students leading those Ed Chats now, that is excellent. I love that. So a couple things. One thing you mentioned, you started these teacher Ed Chats. Did
Yep.
that change the way teachers viewed professional learning? What does professional development look like at your district? And are you finding that now there's more intrinsic motivation now that they're getting on the Ed Chats?
So that's a great question, and I could not have set that up better myself when you're talking about that. So we have 23 different buildings, and a lot of times you get siloed within the 4 walls of your classroom and certainly the walls of your building. So I think that was something that the Ed Chats have changed. And again, it's hashtag Lakota Ed Chat. It really has brought all the positive things that are going on in the classrooms, really brought that to the forefront so our teachers can see what their peers and colleagues are doing. And there is a huge amount of professional development just embedded in that to share different ideas. And so when they're throwing questions out and people are answering, and then all the follow-up and dialogue that takes place, we've actually held 3 or 4 tweet ups too, so that people can put faces together with each other. And we usually average about 50 or 60 people on the Ed Chat. So it's been really good, and we storify those. So we push those out to our staff if they can't participate live, or actually out into the Twitterverse, I guess, so people can see what's going on. The other thing that we've changed this year too, when you're talking about professional development, is we've changed it from bringing somebody in from the outside to talk at us for 3 hours. We've changed now our PD to what we call Lakota Learning Days. And so it's PD options built for teachers by teachers. And so we have teachers submit plans of what they want to present to the staff. And then our curriculum department takes all that in and try to streamline, not so much a clearinghouse for yes or no, but more of clustering and grouping the different options in the learning tracks for our teachers. And so we've done that. And now we just have teachers and administrators presenting to staff. And that goes so much better. They're hearing about it about a topic from one of their own peers, and not from somebody from the outside that's going to do a one and done and be gone. The other thing that we're trying to push here at Lakota, and some other schools, we've picked this up from other schools as well, is when you do PD for staff, sometimes that can be a lot of sit and get. And that's usually not very productive and something that is sustainable. So what we've been doing is a 50-50 model, where half of it might be sit and get, but the other half needs to be up and doing and collaborating and building something out. So we're trying to do that. And then I think probably, Catherine, in a few months to maybe a year and a half, we want to start engaging our teachers and helping us build out open educational resources for our kids. Again, harnessing the expertise that we have in our classrooms and using that to be the driver for the curriculum, versus buying something from the outside and saying it's a one size fits all and it's going to meet the needs of 17,000 kids. And that's not realistic. But we do think we have the internal capacity, not just in Lakota, but probably regionally, that we can build that out and really embrace that teacher voice point, where we can build out our own open educational resources and curriculum for our kids that's fluid, that's adaptable, and that can be changed on an as-needed basis.
Absolutely. I love that. And it sounds like what you are doing is truly empowering your teachers to be leaders. And so you're developing leaders from within, and then they're going to have more of that intrinsic motivation. You read Daniel Pink's work on people needing, drive, how they need that autonomy, that mastery, and that purpose. And so by allowing them the autonomy, but also giving them the collaborative opportunities to build some mastery and giving them purpose with just the students, I think that's a great model. And I really like how you're building up your district that way. I had one more question. I'm wondering, how did, as you have lessened the amount of sit and get PD and had teachers more active, did you see that translated into the classroom with students as well?
Yeah, that's a great point too. Yeah, there's definitely some overlap on the PD side with our teachers into the classroom. I mean, PBL has taken off. Google 20% time has taken off, and every one of our schools is embracing the maker movement to a point, and just really launching into that. And I think a lot of that has come over. It kind of permeates through the district about the collaboration and the sharing piece that our teachers are doing. So to your point, that's a great note to make, that there is carryover into the classroom, because we're seeing it. And the other thing about that is, it was probably happening in certain pockets anyway, but I think magnifying it and amplifying the teacher voice helps spread that positivity about what's going on in our public school classrooms every single day. And I think if we can shine a light on that and share that's going to help build everything out for the staff, but certainly for the kids too.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I have truly enjoyed hearing what you're doing out there, and I may I'll have to look at time zones and stuff and see if I could join in on your chat. I think that would be a lot of fun to learn with you as well. My last question is for any leaders that are listening, that are viewing this interview and are wondering how to get started. What are some resources that you can provide, or some books that you have that have really helped you along your journey?
Thanks for that question too. Probably and I was not a fan at first, but probably the biggest tool that's helped me as an educational leader has truly been Twitter. And again, when I first started several years ago, I didn't get it. But after a while, I started following other educational leaders and saw what a lot of them were doing. I tried to replicate and utilize a lot of what they're doing. And certainly it has been huge for us in terms of staff and student engagement. So before I came to Lakota, we didn't have a district hashtag, and that was something that we thought we needed right away, and we do have one now. It's hashtag We Are Lakota, and the W and the E are both capitalized because our two high schools are Lakota West and Lakota East, and so there's a lot of rivalry there, but we thought, if we could bring those two together under the umbrella of We Are Lakota, and they both have a piece of that, that'll go well. And that's really taken off in our district and been marketed and branded everywhere. That's really helped. So we have kids that use that hashtag. Our community uses it, not just our staff and administrators and teachers, but also now our parents, our sports teams, our athletic teams. So if you do a search by your district hashtag, you should see all the awesome things that are going on in your school district every single day. And just to amplify that and put that out there has really helped. I think as far as books go, I'm a huge fan of two authors, and they've both written books. You mentioned Daniel Pink, but two that I'll give for educational leaders would be Sheninger, has written a few books on digital leadership. In fact, one of his from just a few years ago was my main driver into the social media foray. And then the other one, who's a great author as well, and who I've got to know across different conferences and just engaging on Twitter and social media, is Tom Murray. Tom does a lot of work with Future Ready across the country, and he and Eric Sheninger just put out a book not too long ago that would really help school districts and ed leaders and teachers in terms of transformation in the ed tech space. So those are two of my favorites. I got a lot more, but again, I pick up a lot of what I learned from Twitter, and that's where I get my news, but that's also where I get my PD for school.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I would definitely echo that those are excellent books and people to follow as well. And also that Twitter is an amazing place to learn. The learning curve once you get on, as you said at first, I myself didn't get it when I was first asked to go on Twitter as well. So, but again, thank you again for your time. And I would definitely encourage everyone to follow you and go check out our Site Leaders Connect EduLeader database, and follow all of them as well. And hopefully we'll get some more people looking at your hashtag and encourage some other educational leaders to create their own. So thanks so much. And we look forward to seeing everyone on the next Insight interview.
Thanks, Catherine.